Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Excuse me. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in with us at workerscompensation.com. We'd like to get you updated on what's going on our site today and what we've got covered, and maybe give you a little bit of a sneak preview on what we're going to be covering for tomorrow. So let's go ahead and share what we've got here. And this is always fun when I try to do this, but let's see what we can do. We're going to go ahead and share our screen here. Hopefully that's coming up. Maybe that's not coming up. Okay, there we go. Now we have something interesting going on here. Let's go ahead and get off that screen and on this screen. So the big story that we were covering today, late last week, as many of you already know, if you've been tuned into the news, the Supreme Court is coming out with all sorts of decisions. It's been a very busy time. Typically, as it usually is, the big cases come out at the end of the term, and this term has been no different. We'll have more coverage on some other Supreme Court cases, but this one that we got to for today deals with the bankruptcy plan for Purdue Pharma, and SCOTUS knocked it down, as we use in the headline there. Decided that that was not in keeping with the bankruptcy code. So just to give a brief overview of it, if you haven't read the article, and if you're just now stepping into this news, Purdue Pharma, of course, was the maker of OxyContin. And, we could go on and on about the long history of OxyContin and the opioid epidemic. But needless to say, it's something that impacted the workers' compensation space quite a bit because chances are, if you were injured on the job and were experiencing pain because of it for, I don't know, from the mid 90s until probably sometime in the mid 2000s, you were probably prescribed OxyContin. And there's this whole interesting history of it. If you look up the history of pain is the fifth vital sign, there's all kinds of stuff there. But anyway, so needless to say, with the opioid epidemic doing what it did, with the number of deaths there were, of course, the lawsuits came after. And the Sacklers, who were the owners who ran Purdue Pharma, came up with a plan as litigation was mounting against Purdue Pharma, and concerns were that it would mount against them. They came up with what they used the word a milking plan, and the Supreme Court's majority was keen to point out that language. And here it is, the milking program under which the Sacklers drained as much as 70% of the company's revenue each year, to the tune of $11 billion over about an 8-year period. Anyway, so as time went on, of course, and that financial situation wasn't going to be much of a winner for Purdue, there was the Purdue filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, and eventually that plan was upheld in court, and then the challenge came to it from mainly from the U.S. trustee. So the government has a stake in this, and the government trustee and the bankruptcy proceedings filed an application to stay the Second Circuit's ruling that upheld the plan. So anyway, long story short, it makes its way before the Supreme Court. The idea was that so the litigants would get something from it, from Purdue Pharma, and in turn, the Sacklers could not be sued personally. Now, when it got to the Supreme Court, the majority opinion, which was written by Justice Neil Gorsuch, basically said that this was not in keeping with anything in the bankruptcy code. And we give you a nice little rundown on what the bankruptcy code covers and why the court's majority found that this deal wasn't in keeping with that. And basically, this is the holding right here. Gorsuch and the majority said the bankruptcy code does not authorize release and injunction that, as part of a plan of reorganization under Chapter 11, effectively seek to discharge claims against a non-debtor, in this case, the Sacklers, without the consent of affected claimants. So there you have it. Basically, what they were saying, what the majority was saying, is that they were stretching bankruptcy law just a little too far. And, the bankruptcy protection is for a debtor who places all their assets out there to be taken by creditors. In this case, essentially what the court's majority found was that the Sacklers were attempting to get the protections of the bankruptcy system without that kind of skin in the game where they have to put all their assets out there for creditors to claim. So there you go. And you can read all about that. You can get a little bit more on it if you want to. You can find the opinion is out there on the web. There's a lot of places to find it. It's a long one because there's a pretty long dissenting opinion that Justice Brett Kavanaugh wrote along with several other justices. If I'm not mistaken, it was a 5-4 opinion. And it doesn't break down, normally we're getting used to these cases that break down 6-3 on the Republican appointed justices writing against the Democrat appointed justices. This one wasn't like one of those. This was a little bit different. And this isn't one of those cultural sort of, culture war kind of cases. It's something a little bit different. Bankruptcy and that kind of thing. Anyway. So we have more that we have to report on from the Supreme Court, including the case that many of you have probably already read or have already heard about when the court struck down a 40-year precedent case that gave us what was known as Chevron deference. That definitely affects workers' compensation because it has the potential to affect decisions that regulatory agencies that are in some way, charged with regulating things that have to do with the workspace or work safety. Right off the bat, you think of OSHA, but you might also think of the EPA and maybe some other agencies out there. And then if you broaden it out a little bit, in terms of just agencies that might have some kind of regulatory power over workplaces like the EEOC or, I don't know, maybe the Department of Labor, things like that. In a nutshell, and we'll get to this in our summary, but in a nutshell, what the Supreme Court said was that whereas Chevron deference would give the agencies their chance to interpret a statute as long as it wasn't unreasonable, the decision that was handed down Friday says, well, no, hold on a minute. It's up to courts to interpret statutes. And there was an interesting kind of give and take between the dissent and the majority in that case as well. So we'll get to that soon. Many of you have probably already read it, but you'll get if you haven't, you'll get our summary of it here this week. Anyway, so that was the rundown there on the Purdue Pharma case, the bankruptcy case there from Purdue Pharma. If you're looking forward to what we're covering tomorrow, we've got a great lineup. We got some more follow-up on this Purdue Pharma case and an interesting tie-in that our Dr. Claire Musselman finds this interesting parallel between the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire and the Purdue Pharma opioid crisis. And you'll want to read that. This is a great read, one that's very historically astute, a very knowledgeable analysis, and something that I think enriches our site, but also it's just the understanding of workers' compensation and the role that it plays societally. Another excellent column from Natalie Torres. This one's on yoga. Now, she's an expert on this, but listen, this is something that is probably just lurking back there in the background. But yoga could be a huge tool for injury prevention and recovery. So she breaks that down there. It's a very interesting case for yoga in the workers' compensation system. And then our last story that we'll be focusing on tomorrow is a What Do You Think feature from Chris Parker. I enjoy these. It gives you a chance to match wits with an Ohio court in this case. So we'll hope you join us. Listen, we hope that you subscribe to our LinkedIn newsletter, our LinkedIn page, and we also hope that you hit us up on Instagram. Now, today on Instagram, what did we have there? Well, let me get into it. I feel like an old man here. Okay, so, and this is what we want to leave you with today because it's July 1st and it's Canada Day. So if you are one of our neighbors to the north, we wish you a very happy Canada Day. All right, everyone. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for checking us out. If you have questions, get in touch. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. And thank you so much.